Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let me turn off my heater because it is officially damn near summer. Now listen, I'm going to do this with this mask on because I have a video shoot on Sunday and I have this insanely ridiculous mustache with nothing else around it. And honestly, it's intense. But anyways, I don't want to reveal the character and I don't want to reveal what I got going on, so I'm going to keep this incognito despite obviously being inside and not necessarily needing a mask right now. Now, with that being said, brand new project from Sir Drake himself, the Dark Lane demo tapes. Now, the only thing that I can honestly compare this to, and the most logical comparison that I can think of and put you next to, is Kendrick Lamar's Untitled project. Even as far as the color scheme and the look of it. Obviously there's less records on the Kendrick project, and I just think that just comes with the objectivity of having a little bit of class about your music. If you're going to release songs that you feel are not album worthy, and that maybe are not mixed and mastered and finalized the way that you specifically would want them to, then I'm also not going to throw you enough songs to have it be considered an album. I think there's a very strong agenda to have this scapegoat of, oh, well, this is not an album, this is an EP, these are just throwaway songs, these are my homie's favorite songs right now, and blah, 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 but it's not the album. It's like, well, you know what, I'm kind of conflicted. I feel like on one side, you're doing it for your fans who would love to hear all your music on the same day, of course, because Drake stans are, maybe a step level down for Beyonce fans. And I think that's great. I think as an artist, you should only really care about your fans because everybody else is really irrelevant. If somebody doesn't like you or like your music and wants to hate on you, they're gonna do that regardless of what record you put out, of how many records you put out, of what the artwork is, of how you package it. None of that really matters at the end of the day. And I think Drake understands that, and he knows that at the end of the day, the only people that truly matter to him are his fans. And his fans are going to support his music and they're gonna love his music despite it being obviously subpar records. Now, my question is this: at what point does the fact that this album by tomorrow night is going to be breaking new streaming records, which he, I'm sure, set, that this album is obviously going to hit the charts, that this album is obviously going to make him at least $1 million, doesn't that qualify as some sort of album? Doesn't that kind of put him in the playing field of the album talk? Correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, if you're selling it, it's an album. If it's for free, it's a mixtape. That's been the category and how we categorize things for the history of life. I know back in the day we would sell mixtapes out of the car and, the bodegas and shit like that, but it's a new day. So I do think that the dynamics of how we measure these things should be revisited so we have a better idea of how we're gauging it. Because to me, if you're putting out 14 songs on a project, that's an album. I mean, this project could have easily been narrowed down to 8 songs, which, for me, it's essentially all the songs that we had already heard. When to Say When, Chicago Freestyle featuring Giveon, which we told you about a few weeks ago. The 2C Slide, of course, because that was the TikTok manifestation of Drake going #1 again. War. I mean, this could have easily been a 5-6 track project, but of course you want to put out a couple extra features on there. Not only features, but records that maybe you felt weren't that good or weren't good enough to make it to the album. And you want to give people something where they'll be excited about. Because if you just put out a project with songs that are already out, then that shit's gonna flop and nobody's really gonna go to it. Even though I wouldn't put my money on it, because obviously Drake does numbers regardless. He's kind of tapped into Eminem status when it comes to, you can release anything you want, say anything you want, and you're gonna do numbers because where your name and your status is. Now, like I said, to me, these standout records on the project is the ones that we've kind of already heard because we're already kind of used to them and they sit right. When to Say When, Chicago Freestyle, The 2C Slide. I think one of the best records on this project is Not You Too, which with Chris Brown. I think that really taps into that classic, legendary, drizzy sound where you get the little underwater effect, and you get the melodies, and you get the whispers, and you get 40 doing his thing on the boards. So it makes it sound like Drake can actually sing, and it sounds beautiful and emotional. I think that's probably the best record on this project, which is great because it's not a record that we've heard before, and it's a brand new look for us. I think Desires will do well because people love Future and Drake features. Even though the song is kind of whatever, but I did like the line, "You're going vegan, but you're still beefing with me." I thought that was one of those clever Drake punchlines. In addition to the D4L song with Thug and Future, which I'm sure is gonna get overhyped and promoted really heavily as far as the internet goes, I thought they were going to do a reinvention of the classic Laffy Taffy D4L. I thought there was going to be a reference in there, but there was not. I think the D4L concept was just basically Drake tapping into the Atlanta hip hop scene and vulturing off that like he likes to do a lot, and just saying, hey, look where I'm accepted. And you know, that's no hit on Drake. He's just notoriously and historically shown that instead of giving us, even on this throwaway project, some Canadian vibes, some Canadian accents, some Canadian lingo that he's been trying to supposedly push out for so long, yet he refuses to because he knows the American population will not go for that. And as somebody who has always liked Drake's music, been a fan of Drake, I can also see where, honestly, to me, Drake is one of the biggest culture vultures in the entire scene because, you know, for me, language, the way we speak, the dialect, the way we pronounce words, the accent that we use is the biggest source of culture there is. So for me, the fact that Drake has put out now 5 albums, none of which really showcase, highlight, or expand on his true speaking voice, on his true accent, on his true lingo, makes it a little vulture-y. It makes it a little bit vulture-y. But nonetheless, you know, that doesn't mean I can't enjoy his music. That doesn't mean I'm not a fan of him. I just have to be subjective in the way that I see him move through the industry. The Black Boy JB thing, the Migos thing, the I Love McConan thing, all strikes me extremely vulturous in a sense. Now listen, for all of you Drake fans that may hear this and may feel like I'm hating on him or taking shots, just keep in mind that this is a throwaway project for a reason. He's already announced his album's gonna come out summer of 2020, and I think it's obvious to say that any records that landed on this project were and should be you guys should understand that these records were obviously subpar in the sense of, on his album, I'm expecting records that are way better than these, right? So my whole thing is, if you're gonna give us a throwaway project, don't give us a throwaway project in the length of an album. Give us a throwaway project that's short, concise, and kind of gets us excited about where we're headed. But gets us excited about where you're headed. And again, if you're looking to argue with me or take shots at me because you think I'm hating on Drake, don't. Because obviously, if Drake is saying this is an album and he threw these away just, it's for a reason. And if you ask Drake, these are the weakest records in his current selection of music in regards to his album and what he's planning on giving us later this summer. With that being said, guys, Rambo Hustle for the Hip Hop Report. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, hit the subscribe button, and have an amazing weekend.